Hello and welcome to MMA Crypt Fighting Talk. For today's show, we'll be going 3 rounds of recent hot MMA news. Joining me on today's show will be Brian Hunt and Chris McMillan. Okay, starting the show out in round 1, and GSP has his title taken by UFC staff. Apparently after GSP defended his title against Johnny Hendricks at UFC 167, he was in the back taking a shower, then was suiting up for the post-fight press conference, when UFC staff came by and took his title without even telling him. GSP still hasn't got the title back to date, but apparently he has all his other titles he defended. Now the story seems a little weird and a little far-fetched on first reading. I do believe GSP is telling the truth, and maybe there was some bitterness behind the decision to take the belt from GSP. Brian, what do you make of GSP having his belt taken by UFC staff?
It doesn't add up to me. It's typically I would think these guys after a fight, again, I haven't been there, so I don't know, but I think they shower after the fight and before the press conference, and at the press conference he has the belt. So that it just doesn't add up. I'm thinking it's going to get blamed on a language barrier excuse again, something along those lines. I'm not saying Dana's not beyond that, because he can be a little bitch at times. But this particular case, I don't think it adds up. Just they did know he was quitting at the time. Again, he takes a shower, then he wears a nice suit, so I'm guessing he's clean before he puts on the suit, and then he has the belt at the press conference. So I think it's a non-story at this point. I think it's going to just be blamed on language barrier or misquote or something along those lines. So we shall see what develops from it.
Well, you do bring up a good point, Brian. He did have the belt at the post-fight press conference. So that was a little strange. They could have took the belt just to take it to the post-fight press conference and stick it there. As far as language barriers, what do you mean by that there, Brian?
Well, he'll speak in French, and then it gets translated to something else. And I mean, this is a complete freaking guess, but it could have just been a quote of, wow, I left the shower, my belt was gone. But then I saw it at the press conference. And they might have just left out the second part because that's the story, or who knows. It just doesn't add up. There's too many red flags to me to really think there's any legitimacy here. Or they could have took it after the press conference and told him to fuck off, and he still doesn't have his belt now. But again, just per the quote, doesn't make sense to me.
Well, just bear with me a second, Brian. I'm watching the post-fight press conference now. There's a lady with black hair coming over. She's putting the belt right next to GSP. He's staring at her. Now he's looking away. So they gave him back the belt. They might have took it, but they gave it back to him. Whether he was allowed to take it after the post-fight press conference, I do not know. But it makes no sense, to be honest with you, Brian, because if they did take the belt, then they did give it back to him at the press conference. Now, if I was GSP, I would have fucking took it. You know what I mean? Hey, that's my belt. Give it back. Chris, what's your thoughts on GSP having his belt taken away?
Right now, it just confirms to me that GSP may have taken this MMA hiatus because he was not happy with the UFC brass and was not having a good relationship with them. And not saying this is definite, but for now, I think it reinforces the idea that he is not going to return to MMA anytime soon, or possibly ever, because this isn't the first time he's come out with a statement which it sounds weird because after UFC 167, because the whole thing between him and Dana White has been kind of strange, because from what we've never heard them having a bad relationship. We've always heard them get on really well. Generally, GSP's been complimentary of Dana White, and generally Dana White's been complimentary of GSP. Leading into this fight, GSP blatantly came out and said the UFC let me down, and I was very disappointed with how they didn't support me with the Vada Wada thing. And Dana White did come out and say, "Oh, it makes GSP look stupid," when he was just trying to do it for the better of the sport. Or that's what he said he was trying to do it for. So, what I'm getting to here is that all this stuff, and what GSP said, where the UFC brass was not letting him go to the press conference, and Dana White said that's not true. There's a miscommunication there. it doesn't sound. Again, this doesn't sound good, and it really doesn't sound good for the UFC because Dana White's taken a lot of heat over his comments following that fight, and again, there were a lot of questions over is George feel like he's getting bullied by Dana White, and statements like this don't really help Dana White's case. So it's, I think right now it's George St-Pierre speaking his mind, and as far as Dana White goes, Dana White's not really doesn't really care, as he says, about what the public thinks of him, but whether he wants to say that or not, this particular statement does not look good for him.
Well, I'm still watching the post-fight press conference here for UFC 167. It's just ending now, and GSP actually stands up when it ends, and he walks away. He just leaves his belt there. So his statement is not really an issue anymore, because regardless if they did take his belt, they put it back next to him at the post-fight press conference, and he didn't take it with him. He just walked away from it. So I don't know if he's trying to actually stir here. If it is true, then obviously I think Dana White needs to grow up a little bit, because GSP has been a classy champion and represented the UFC well over the years. There was all this thing about fucking aliens and time and whatnot, so maybe GSP might be a bit fucked in the head. If he is telling the truth, then Dana needs to, be a bit more respectful to his employees, and especially his long-serving champions. Now, I want to move on to about a few days after UFC 167. GSP did announce he wanted to take time away from the sport in his post-fight speech, but Dana White seemed fairly confident that GSP would return shortly after and began starting rumours of a rematch between GSP and Hendricks. This clearly was Dana White trying to create a media storm and get the fans behind a rematch. So GSP would basically have no choice but to come back, because there was all the story of, Hendricks really won, the fans already thought Hendricks won. There needed to be a rematch to settle this. So if GSP never came back, it looked like he was carrying out. I believe Dana White personally was trying to put the pressure on GSP. Brian, do you think Dana White has been a bit of a dick towards GSP by trying to pressure GSP into a fight that he clearly didn't want?
No, I don't. I think Dana, and again, I'm the first one to call Dana a little bitch out there. I am. I mean, he does stuff that's a little bitch. But you also hear him say, if the guy doesn't want to fight, it's not something you can make him do. It's you got to get out when you want. If you don't feel it, he's real quick to say, you got to get out. Dana knows boxing, and we've seen too many boxers not quit when it was time. Hell, we still see Roy Jones Jr. in the fucking news. So they can't get out of it. And if it's not in the heart, Dana knows real quick that, no, you can't. You can't sugarcoat it in MMA. You can't fight a bunch of bums in MMA and not be called out on it. And that's not going to work for GSP. So, no, I don't think he's doing it. I think Dana just wants an answer. Shit or get off the pot type of thing. Either be our champion and fight or get off the pot. So that's how I view it. It's just a shit or get off the pot type of thing. And I think GSP handled it right. He got off the pot, and maybe he'll come take a shit here again soon.
Yeah, but you say that though, Brian. But I'm just going to read a statement to you from Dana White. This was literally about 3 days after UFC 167. As far as the rematch goes, we're on schedule, and I'll have a date within a couple of weeks. I feel confident that George is fine with that, and all is on track. So to me, he mentioned, I feel confident that George is fine with that. He's just presuming. It's like, shouldn't you find out for sure and make sure that he really wants this rematch before you start releasing this to the press? Do you think that was a bit underhanded by Dana White there, Brian?
Slightly, but he also spoke to Georges after the fight about these issues, and he felt they weren't that big. So he either didn't get the complete answer from George. I mean, we still don't know what it was. Did he knock up a woman? It sounds like his father's healthy. We just don't know. We don't know what the true story is. And Dana heard him, and it's like, wow, I mean, they're big to him, but they're really not that big in the big picture. So I think he thought he was coming back. And if he thinks he's coming back, he thinks he's going to set a rematch. So he's a promoter too. He's got to promote the sport. if he was talking out of both sides of his face saying, well, I think George is done, I don't think he's coming back, but we're setting up a rematch, then that'd be one thing. But he's not. He just kind of, the information he had is kind of leading him towards that. And I'm glad he pressured George to shit or get off the pot. I don't want to wait 6 months for what's he doing? What's he doing? Fucking shit or get off the pot. And that's what he did. So and for me, it couldn't have been handled better. It's the only thing I'd liked better is a little 4-man tourney to get the new champion. But this is fine. I mean, it's not being held up. It's no more drama. If George wants to come back, cool. If not, so be it.
Well, there is a number one contender fight in Carlos Condit and Tyron Woodley, so it's still sort of like a little 4-man tournament in a way. Woodley and Condit will face the winner of Hendricks and Lawler. Chris, what's your take on Dana White trying to force a rematch between GSP and Hendricks when GSP clearly wanted time off?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I do agree with what Brian said, that Dana White's a promoter and that's what he's going to do. And so I can understand where he was coming from. And, to be fair, I do feel that his comments directly after the fight were taken out of context a little bit because, GSP had not given Dana White a warning or the UFC a warning that he wanted to take time off. And he went up and asked him, are you retiring? And he said no. So I can kind of see where he's coming from. But with that being said, George hadn't exactly. But, with that being said, it sounds, just saying from my perspective, I'm not in the fighting promoter business, but this is just my personal input or thoughts on it. It seemed like that he announced that they were on track with a rematch before talking to George about it. So now I could be wrong about that, but that's what it seemed like. So was he trying to force GSP into the rematch completely? Well, again, what I said about, GSP's comments about having his belt taken off him, you can draw your own conclusion from, these comments that have gone, these comments about that GSP and Dana have spoken about each other. GSP saying that the UFC let him down, that he wasn't allowed to go to the press conference, that they took his belt off him, etc. And Dana White saying, the whole VADA thing makes George look stupid, and he owes it to the UFC, when really everyone's like, he doesn't owe anybody anything. You can make your own conclusion from that. To me, it looks like GSP has not been enjoying his last couple of months involved with the UFC, that he hasn't been having the best relationship with Dana White, and that's my opinion on it. Look, I don't know to what extent Dana tried to, force the rematch on GSP, but I gather as a promoter, he probably pushed it pretty hard, and that's his job. But on the other hand, he's got a guy who is clearly troubled. Now, how much, we don't know. And also, like you said, the classiest champion the UFC has ever seen, and one of the best champions the UFC will ever see. And you could say that, and it seemed apparent that from his comments that he did not have GSP's best interests in his mind. So that's just my take on it.
Chris, you mentioned GSP doesn't owe anybody anything. He owes me an Anderson Silva fight. Took Condit instead and Nick Diaz.
Let me tell you this, man. After only following the UFC for a year, after GSP asked to fight Nick Diaz, I made it known to everybody that I felt that fight would never happen, and everybody blew me up, and turns out I was right. So I think the hints were there for a long time. The fight was never going to happen because George never showed interest in it. So,
well, on to the issue at hand. I don't know what the talks were between Dana White and GSP, but I do know that if you're not 100% that the fight is going to happen, then I think you should really keep quiet and don't go saying anything to the media. I personally think Dana White tried to pressure GSP to fight by creating fans' interest, and they would start trolling GSP for not fighting Hendricks. Dana White knew what he was doing, guys. That's my opinion anyway. Okay, moving on to round 2. Batman and Robin versus Spider-Man. Now, I was scrolling through Facebook the other day when I came across Batman and Robin versus Spider-Man MMA fight. Obviously, my reaction was to click the link and witness the strange affair for myself. Now, I must admit, guys, I actually enjoyed what I saw. I think Robin was a bit of a pussy for quitting as soon as Batman looked like he was at the fight. He literally he walked off the mat and was like, "No, I don't want no more. I don't want no more." Batman did come back to conclude the fight with Spider-Man on his own. It was Spider-Man who reigned victorious over Batman and Robin. For all you comic book lovers out there, just so you know. Now, I know you guys have seen the video, courtesy of me. Chris, tell us your thoughts on the fight between these crime-fighting heroes.
Fair enough to say that I don't really care. I'm sorry. Okay, I can enjoy it for what it is, but in all honesty, I mean, okay, put it this way. I would watch that video over WWE wrestling any day because I've said it before and I'll say it again that I would rather be castrated in front of the world than watch a minute of WWE wrestling. I'm not kidding. I would rather be castrated by incineration than watch that stuff. So I'll watch this over that any day, but it didn't really do anything for me. I mean, you know, I used to watch a lot of Dream and, you know, K1 and all that, and I thought that the freak show MMA fights were always placed in Japan. So, you know, if you wanted to see someone 5'9" against someone 7'2" or some other crazy freak show, you would simply go to Japan. So interesting that these guys would. I mean, who knows? Maybe they could make a celebrity boxing match and have the celebrities dress up as Batman and Robin and Spider-Man, and I have no idea. But it didn't really do anything for me.
You got to have been impressed with the start of the fight. Batman gets down on one knee and fucking Robin jumps over his back for a flying kick. Obviously, Spider-Man didn't fall into that trap. Did that not impress you, Chris?
Of course. I mean, definitely. If somebody throws just take note of this. Everybody wants to become and who wants to train in MMA. If somebody throws a flying kick to you, the best thing to do is go down on one knee and duck under it. That's the best thing you can possibly do. Definitely.
See, the thing for me, Chris, on this fight is they are hitting each other for real. It's like role play as well, like stage acting. It's like 50-50. It's like half a real fight and half like fucking staged. You know. Do you think it was a real fight, Chris?
No. I mean, if that was a real fight, then honestly, if that was a real fight, I would never watch MMA again.
I don't know. Oh, fucking no. He's got him in a clinch. Spider-Man's... Oh, that's real. Spider-Man's fucking planted a fucking knee right to his chops. Oh, Robin just took a kick to the head. I'm watching it now. Oh, this is real, Chris. We need to get the replay back on the go. Oh, see, but then it looks fake because he's got them both in a... You know, he's doing a man to a bar now. He's got one hand on the back of the head. Now he's bent over and he's just thrown him. See, that's what I mean. There's some real bits and there's some, like, questionable bits. Any listeners who are watching this show, I'll leave a link to the Batman and Robin versus Spider-Man. Just check it out for yourself and leave some comments below and let us know if you think it's real or not. Brian, need to ask you.
I thought it was real, but I don't think Robin knew it was going to be real. I don't think he had a clue what he was getting into.
He thought Spider-Man was a pussy.
Yeah, well, Spider-Man can fight. I mean, I don't want to fight Spider-Man. He knows how to throw a punch. You can tell Spider-Man's a legit fighter. I would guess Batman's maybe been fighting for a year or so. Batman has some training. I don't know how much training, but...
Sorry, I think this was Anderson Silva before he broke his leg against Wyman because he's doing some flashy shit. Spider-Man is doing some flashy shit and Batman's trying to copy him with a cartwheel.
Yeah.
Takes some effort in the process.
I'll just say this, there is only... Sorry, carry on.
Let's stop Brian off. Go on, Brian, sorry. We're sorry, Brian, go on.
Batman has some training. Robin has zero. I think Robin signed up to a gym yesterday and did this video the following day. Well, yeah, this should be fun. Then he gets fucking tagged. It's like, this ain't fun anymore. It's not good for MMA. This is where somebody's going to get hurt. Robin's going to get a fucking broken neck. There's not going to be proper doctors there. And then fighter gets hurt at MMA fight. And that's going to be the title. And this isn't an MMA fight. I don't know if I have more interest in this or Batman Robin porn parody. I'm not sure.
I like the porn parody.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too. And so porn parody might be more popular too. I don't know where they're going to go with this. It's not. It was entertaining. I actually watched the whole video. And I'll probably.
It was only 3 minutes long, Brian.
Well, the struggle. Right? Seeing somebody like Robin get beat up is not entertaining. He had no fucking business being. And maybe Robin kicks my ass. I don't fucking know. But he had no fucking business being out there, and that's not entertaining to me. It's so. It is what it is, but and I'll probably see what the fuck the Joker does in the next one. But that's something I'm gonna be overly excited about. So.
Who would you like to see if there was going to be a superhero match there for the next one? Who would you like to see? I'd like to see the Hulk. The Hulk versus Penguin. That'll be interesting.
I don't.
Well,
know.
you mentioned Robin there, and Chris mentioned pro wrestling. I actually think Robin thought he signed up for a pro wrestling fight. Then when he got kicked in the face a few times, he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, agreed.
Well, for me, I loved the ring layout, personally. It reminded me of something out of, like, Karate Kid. Do you know when they're on the mats? They also have some genuine good fighters over there. They have Jimmy Justice Miller and Sam Mencher. Obviously, they wasn't part of that Joker, Batman and Robin, whatever fight it was. But I'm not sure if the fight was 100% serious and real. Like I say, it's a strange one to call. I'm really interested to see what the listeners make of it, to be honest with you. But I'm definitely all about MMA tag matches and 2-on-1 stuff, you know. Also, if you look at Batman, guys, that must be the fucking skinniest Batman I've ever seen. Look at the size of his fucking arms and legs. Fucking, he put on a good fight, though. I'll say that much. Okay, moving on to round 3. And Cung Le is set to return in 2014. 42-year-old Cung Le recently announced he will be returning to the Octagon in 2014 and wants to fight with either Michael Bisping or Wanderlei Silva. Apparently, Cung Le was in talks with Dana White to fight Michael Bisping before duties on the Ultimate Fighter China pulled him away from a potential bout with Bisping. Lee wants Bisping on his return, but if he can't fight Michael Bisping, he will settle for a rematch with Wanderlei Silva for obvious reasons. Brian, would you like to see Cung Le fight Bisping or Wanderlei Silva on his return? If not, who would you like to see him fight?
I have a hard time getting excited for Cung Le just because his career disappoints me more than anything. I love the guy when he first entered Strikeforce. Was he with Elite XC before that? Maybe he was. I liked the guy. He had such a potential, and he got such a late start, but he never became a full-time fighter. And I put him in the same realm as I put Bobby Lashley. Is if Bobby Lashley would have, when he first started MMA, decided, okay, I'm going to quit juicing. I'm going to start, allegedly, I'm going to start cutting weight, and I'm going to become a light heavyweight, because Lashley's not a legit heavyweight. If they would have taken it seriously, I think Lashley could have been a contender, and I think Lee could have been a contender. He's fun to watch, but it's all for nothing. It doesn't amount to anything. He's not going to be champ. He's not going to build on one fight for the next fight. It's just, okay, here's a fight, and it's going to amount to nothing. It's going to be entertaining, but it's not going to go anywhere, because it's going to be a year and a half before we see the fucker again. So, I don't get excited about his fights because it's not a career. It's just a singular fight. I'll watch it, and I think Bisping's way too high for him. And after Wanderlei gets beat by Sonnen, maybe that's the right fight. It's not. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to get overly excited about it, I guess.
Chris, would you like to see Cung Lee fight Bisping or Wanderlei Silva on his return? If not, who would you like to see him fight?
Well, I'd be happy to see him. Like Brian, I'd be happy to see him against either of those guys. I agree with Brian again. I'm going to agree with everything Brian says today. That
That's not good.
that a Cung Lee fight is just basically there for entertainment. He's not really going to be going anywhere as far as title contention or whatever. I mean, I just feel that both Wanderlei and Michael Bisping, they're just going to be tough opponents to get right now, because Wanderlei's got his next dance partner, Chael Sonnen, and Michael Bisping, well, I want to see Michael Bisping against Tim Kennedy, because come on, who doesn't enjoy a Michael Bisping build-up? You know, when both guys are talking smack back and forth, who doesn't like that? So I would like to see that fight next. So I just guess as far as schedule timing wise, none of the fights are really going to happen. So who would I like to see Cung Lee fight? Well, I'm happy for him to face anyone really, just because again, it's there for entertainment, not really anything else. I wouldn't mind seeing him against CB Dollaway, because CB Dollaway's he's not a ranked fighter. He's a guy who is actually starting to look exciting for once. I mean, look, the first CB Dollaway fight I saw live was Jason Miller, which put me to sleep. But I wouldn't mind seeing him against CB Dollaway or Tim Bosch, or someone who's just not ranked. But I'm sure he can make an exciting fight out of it. But yeah, I just don't think he should really be fighting a top 10 contender just because he's not going to be going for a title. So, but other than that, I'm happy to see him fight whoever.
There is one fighter who was calling Cung Lee out not too long ago. It was Tom Kong Watson. It was roughly last year. I'd like to see him fight Tom Kong Watson, because Tom Kong Watson, he brings it every time. He brings a war. He brings a stand-up fight. He's got decent boxing. He certainly will trade with Cung Lee, and as somebody who's after Cung Lee, I'm not seeing too many people call Cung Lee out. Obviously, in the UFC, you don't need to call people out weekly, but Tom Kong Watson, for me, I think it'd be a fairly entertaining fight, and obviously a big chance for Tom Kong Watson. Okay, that's a wrap for today's show. To any listeners who have time, stop by MMACrypt.com and check out MMA Crypt Prediction Contest 114. Also, the winner of Prediction Contest Season 2 will win a signed photo from Ken Shamrock. From MMA Crypt Fighting Talk, thank you for watching.